you're taking away time from yourself. You are not using your time how you could be using it because you are cursing other people.
You are going to encounter people that do not have your best interest in mind, or even on the farther end of the spectrum, have your worst interest in mind and genuinely want to do you harm.
For me, it's like a point of principle. No, I will not take it. I am on my own. I am living as a man now. Even if you could offer that to me, I do not want it. I want to go out and live my call to adventure.
Yeah, I'm marking myself so that people know as soon as they see my dick, I am a man of faith. Okay, I think we're actually good to go now, yeah?
We're actually good to go now.
Actually good to go. Welcome back, everybody. It's Thursday, and that means it is time to cast the Bible. Jack, what are we talking about today? Right, yeah, that's not going to be in here, unfortunately. We started recording for about 5 minutes with no mic, so you missed the can crack.
Yeah. So crispy.
But we will say again that this podcast is brought to you by Prime Energy. Logan Paul and KSI and the rest of the company, just as a conglomerate, agree with all of our opinions. They fully endorse all of them. And for whatever reason, KSI was particularly in favor of all of the slavery stuff, which I don't get it.
So hopefully this episode doesn't blow up, because then we might have some troubles. But
I hope it blows up, and then we can maybe get into a Twitter beef with some big names, and that'll just bring more traction to the show.
I'll let you handle that part.
I'll handle that part. I'm happy to do so.
All right, so we're talking about Abram's call and migration. This is the call to adventure, essentially. So starts out with a bunch of people are born and all these descendants, blah, blah, blah. This is right before or right after the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
Then the Lord said to Abram, "Go forth from your land, your relatives, and from your father's house to a land that I will show you." God tells Abram that he will make of him a great nation, and that those who bless him will be blessed, those who curse him will be cursed. All the families of the earth will find blessing in you, he says. So there's that. He blesses Abram. And then Abram, for whatever reason, I guess God was telling him to go, goes to Egypt with his wife, Sarah. But his wife, Sarah, is beautiful, so he tells her, "Hey, pretend to be my sister, so that the Pharaoh looks favorably upon me and does not kill me." Then Sarah goes, and the Pharaoh takes favor upon Abram and Sarah, so he marries Sarah and brings her in as one of his wives. And he gives Abram all kinds of livestock and possessions and all kinds of good things back then, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in those times, he was basically trading possession for possession.
Yeah,
because
pretty much.
Women were treated as property back in the day.
Back in the way back.
Rightfully so.
Back in the old times. Bring it back. And endorsed by Prime. And so so the Pharaoh takes favor upon him, but then God is upset by this, the fact that Sarah is now the Pharaoh's wife.
Yeah.
So God sends plagues down, and the Pharaoh says, "What the fuck? Sarah, this is because somehow he figures out that Sarah was actually Abram's wife and not his sister."
Yeah, and it doesn't say how he figures that out.
Yeah, it doesn't really say,
Just
other
like,
than the plagues happening.
Yeah,
So
he's just like, "What? This is because of you and Abram, isn't it? But be gone with both of you."
So interesting thought. Maybe we can worth revisiting. So
Maybe.
Pharaoh goes, "Okay, get the fuck out." And so then Abram leaves, and he leaves with his nephew Lot. This is his brother's son.
Well, before we go any farther, we touched on something before we had to restart. The Pharaoh never said that he would kill Abram, or like nobody besides Abram thought or said or assumed or anything that he would be killed if he had this beautiful wife. And maybe that's just the way it was back in the day. I don't know, but that was never explicitly stated. It was just assumed.
Yeah, and yep. So he leaves with his nephew Lot, and they venture between Bethel and Ai, and this is where Abram had originally set up camp. And at this point, he has too much livestock and too many possessions. Lot, his nephew, has too many livestock and too many possessions for them to be living together.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think
Abram,
it says the land can't support them.
The land cannot support them, so fights are breaking out between their herders. And so Abram says, "Lot, yo, let's chill, man. Chill. If you want the left side, take the left side. If you want the right side, take the right side. It means no difference to me. Take whatever land you need, and then I'll take my land, and then we can go on. Let's just keep the peace." So Lot kind of looks around and he sees abundant land and water and the cities of the plain and pitches his tent near Sodom. Now, it says explicitly that the citizens inhabiting Sodom are wicked and great sinners against the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So venture forth a little bit more. God says to Abram, this is all yours, homie. Your people will count as dust of the earth, meaning that if they are as valuable to the earth as they ever will, like they ever can be, like they are the possession of the earth just as the earth is possession of itself, something to that extent. Like they are important. So then Abraham goes to what is called the Oak of Mamre and makes an altar for God. And it always keeps bringing up whenever he goes somewhere. It pretty quickly says he makes an altar. He makes an altar,
yeah. I noticed that too. Mm-hmm. One thing we didn't mention at the very beginning is before Abram goes out on this adventure, after God has encouraged him to do so, he says, let's see, what was it? He will make Abraham great for doing so, as well as curse anyone who curses him. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's just worth noting.
No, worth noting.
You know, he told him to go out and explore, tells him he'll be great for it, and anybody who tries to fuck with him will get fucked with by God.
Yep. Fuck with me and find out. Then, so now we get on to chapter 14, the four kings. Now, there are four kings, and they are pissed at the king of Sodom because he's around wickedness. Super wicked. His people are wicked. His land is wicked. So some kings, including the king of Gomorrah, join forces to fight back with Sodom. And because they had been serving under these four kings that we initially mentioned for 12 years. On the 13th year, they rebelled. On the 14th year, they lost. So it continues. Then the four kings go to meet five kings, including those of Sodom and Gomorrah. The valley where they meet is full of bitumen pits, which are, I believe, tar pits when I looked it up.
Yeah.
Now, Sodom and Gomorrah fell into them while their other allies fled to the mountains. And then the winning team, which were the four kings, they were like, awesome, take all their shit. And also take that guy Lot over there. He seems like a character.
And all his shit.
Take all his shit, too. Abraham finds out, or Abram at this point finds out, and he's like, what the fuck? Let's get my homie back. So it's a get back time, drive-by style. So he brings 318 of his retainers, or his hired swordsmen in a sense that are committed to his land.
Small army.
And they get Lot and all the women back, and they get it all back.
All the stuff as well.
All the stuff. So then later, flash forward a little bit. Abram meets the king of Sodom in the king's valley. The priest of Salem is, I'm going to sing you a song, basically. So this king, and this is emphasized in the Bible, this king, who's also a priest, says, blessed be Abram by God Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who delivered your foes into your hand. Then the king of Sodom is like, give me the captives, the goods you can keep. He just wants the captives. Because now he's in a negotiating position, I guess, for some reason, even though he lost. But Abram says, no, keep everything. Like, I give what my warriors deserve or whatever, and take the necessity, but take it all. I'm not concerned after that.
Yeah. He also...
he says that so that he said, I won't take anything of yours so that you cannot say that you made me rich, or that you made me successful. Not even the strap of a sandal I will take. Mm-hmm. And I think, in a sense, because Abram wants to commit that God gave him everything he has earned.
Right.
No one else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm getting at. So then we go forward to chapter 15. Now, this is the covenant with Abram. The word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. I am your shield, he says. I will make your reward very great, the Lord says. Abram's like, what the fuck? You're giving me no So flash forward a little bit. Abram's like, yo, you've given me no children, man. And then the word of the Lord came to him. And now it says the word of the Lord came to him, not the Lord, which I think is notable as well. Not sure exactly why, but... So God tells Abram to set up a sacrifice. God, and he requests 3 of sheep, 3 ox, whatever the animals were. Mm-hmm. And sets that up, and then Abram falls into a deep sleep. And in that deep sleep, God tells Abram that his descendants will be aliens in a foreign land and oppressed as slaves for 400 years.
Great reward for the sacrifice. Thank you, God.
God will judge the slave owners the slave owners over these people when the time has come.
Mm-hmm.
And then after they have gotten through this, he says they will go out with great wealth. And I think we can come back to that because I think that's a cool point. And then he said, you will return here to this point where you were at and be buried. And in 4 generations, your descendants will return here because the Amorites' wickedness is not over. And the Amorites were those who inhabited some land around there. Mm. So their wickedness is not over. So in 4 generations, your descendants will return here, which is interesting. Like, does that follow the cycle of hard times create good men create easy times create?
That was my first thought whenever he said the slaves would be rewarded for their hardship, was that in subjecting yourself to suffering, you are going to come away better for it.
Yeah. So then Abram's wife, flash forward a little bit. She's like, hey, I haven't gotten you any children yet. I feel really bad. Maybe just take my servant, and you can, I'll be a cuckold and let you make children with her.
Yeah.
So as it says, naturally. As it says, Abram obeyed Sarah. Now their servant, her name was Hagar, now looked down on Sarah after this because she found that Sarah not being able to have children and being barren was shameful. And so she started looking down on her. And so Sarah gets all pissed about this and kind of jelly, and so she tells Abram, let's let the Lord choose between our, this problem. Like, shall we get Hagar, our servant, to start treating me better? What should we do? Like, this is pissing me off. And Abram's showing a lot of chillness in this section. So he said, chill, bitch. We good. So Sarah Sarah takes it upon herself to start mistreating her servant. And Hagar leaves because she's upset that Sarah is mistreating her. Mm-hmm. An angel catches Hagar as she's leaving, and the angel tells her, listen, you're going to have all kinds of descendants. Please go back. He asked her, where have you come from and where are you going? I think another notable point. Then the angel said, go submit to your owner's authority. Go submit to Sarah's authority. Okay, and then now we get to the last part of this section, which is the covenant of circumcision. So this is the weirdest part in the Bible to me. When Abram is 99, God says, walk in my presence and be blameless. At this time, God changes Abram's name to Abraham. God says, for my part, you are to become the father of a multitude of nations. Your name shall be Abraham, because you are to become the father of a multitude of nations. That's how it's described.
I don't know why you would have to change your name to do that, but okay. Not enough syllables, sir.
So he says, Canaan is now yours forever. Everyone cut part of your dick off moving forward. This is a sign of our covenant. This is what God said, by the way, verbatim.
Yep. Yeah, that is a direct quote from every version of the Bible, weirdly enough.
Right.
They do not change the wording at all.
So this is a sign of our covenant. If you don't cut part of your dick off, you are kicked out. That's pretty much exactly what he means. So there we get to that, and then we get into Abram asking, well, isn't, God, listen, now you just told me you're going to give me a son. Isn't Ishmael enough, essentially? And God says, even so, I want you to have Isaac as your son. Isaac is the one my covenant is with. Like, he is the one that my covenant will be with, not Ishmael.
And, who gave birth to Isaac?
Sarah.
Sarah did. Okay. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think also, just before we move on from this, it's notable that this angel that came down to Hagar, however it's pronounced, when she had run away, she said, the angel said, behold, you are with child and you will bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because Yahweh has heard your affliction. He will be like a wild donkey among men. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. He will live opposed to all of his brothers. Mm-hmm. I thought that was interesting that the angel just made it very clear. He's going to have a difficult time.
He's going to be a pariah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's going to be a pariah among his peers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's interesting. So, and then it says Abraham was 99 and Ishmael was 13, and they were circumcised on the same day, which is like, I think that's significant in itself. Like, why would they feel the need to tell us that? So that's kind of where part one of this section, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And they do just kind of randomly mention how old people were whenever things happen, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I think as we were reading through the Ark story, at one point it just said Noah was 400 years old at this point.
Yeah.
And it wasn't relevant at all. It just said Noah had been on the earth for 400 years now.
Right.
I don't know.
Don't know what to make of that.
Yeah.
So, but what do you take away from what we've gotten to so far?
Well, let's see. As far as first of all, I think we can kind of draw a parallel a little bit to the Tower of Babel with God encouraging exploration in Abraham, because that's kind of what I took away from God scattering people away from the Tower of Babel to a certain extent, was that hunkering down where you are right now is not going to lead to any kind of discovery, so you need to go out and explore. And I think it evolves further upon that in this story by God literally telling Abraham, I will make you great for doing this.
Yeah.
And I will curse anybody that tries to harm you because of it. Almost like he's saying, you will succeed if you go out and explore, and people that try to shut you down for that are not going to live fruitful lives because there's no productivity in that. At least that, I don't think God meant it literally, that didn't mean to say that, but I think that's why that message would come across, because people that are trying to shut down people that are trying to do good things are just like, what's going to happen to them? They're not doing anything good for themselves. They're just trying to harm others.
You're cursing yourself by trying to put others down for trying to succeed. Like, you're taking away time from yourself. You are not using your time how you could be using it because you are cursing other people.
Exactly. Beyond the fact that you're not doing anything fruitful for yourself, or beyond the fact that you are trying to just shut other people's productivity down, it's like you could be better utilizing this time for yourself, moron.
Definitely.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm pretty sure I said this already, but I thought it was interesting that Abraham just assumed naturally that not only would his wife be coveted by other people, but he thought that he would be killed because of it. I don't really know what to make of that specifically.
I could only take like the literal sense of like when you have a beautiful girlfriend or wife, like people are going to be attracted to her and it's going to cause you problems. Not that's not worth pursuing that, but like it's going to cause you problems.
Right, yeah, maybe it is just literally a message to, if you have something that's like a good catch, worth having, if that's your wife, just keep an eye out. People might try to fuck you over because of their jealousy for that.
That which is beautiful, not even maybe just the romantic partner, but anything beautiful in your life.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that there's definitely a lot of truth in that. I think that that's just 100% accurate. If people get jealous of you, they'll try to take it from you. Even if they're not trying to take it from you, they might just try to ruin it for you because they dislike seeing success in other people while they are not succeeding, as opposed to using that successful person as a source of motivation. They just try to destroy it so that there's not that better comparison, making them feel bad, kind of like with Cain and Abel.
Right, absolutely. That's, and the other thing, I guess, is it almost like the Pharaoh might have a warped sense of ethical code. It's like, okay, like, I won't marry this woman if it's your wife. I'll kill you so that I can then marry her because she's single now, but if, as your wife, I will not marry her. Whether that's either his like some warped sense of moral code or he recognizes the laws of the land of like two men cannot marry a woman. I don't know. I don't know what to take of that.
Yeah, as far as the Pharaoh confuses me just kind of on the whole. First of all, we don't know how he figured out why the curses were happening to him. Maybe we could assume that somebody just eventually told him, but that's not explicitly stated at any point. I don't. I don't know why he would just send them. Maybe he didn't kill him afterwards. Like maybe Abram was right in assuming that he would kill him in order to marry his wife, but maybe he did not do that because of all of the curses happening to him. He's like, well, fuck, what's gonna happen if I kill this guy?
Yeah.
This is what's happening to me just for trying to take his wife, and I left him alive, and I didn't even know it was his wife. I thought it was his sister.
Huh.
So, I also don't understand the Pharaoh being cursed too much in that, just in this story. He didn't know any better, and that was because Abraham lied.
Yeah.
Who knows what he would have done if he did know this was actually his wife and not his sister.
Why would God be calling you to put you in a position where you're like going to be killed?
Well, maybe he wasn't definitely going to be killed, and the general message there is just that if you go out and explore and adventure and go outside of your comfort zone, you are going to experience just these types of people. Evil people, wicked people, people that just don't want the best for you, generally speaking. Maybe that's the main message. The call to adventure is not going to be easy, but it's still what you need to do. And again, I think that's accurate. If you just put yourself out there and go out and about in the world, you are going to encounter people that do not have your best interest in mind, or even on the farther end of the spectrum, have your worst interest in mind and genuinely want to do you harm.
And you have to be vulnerable enough to put yourself in that position to attain anything.
Sure, yeah, you have to be willing to put yourself in that vulnerable position, but just be prepared to deal with it. And maybe Abraham lying about the fact that she was his wife is symbolic of that you have to figure out a way to deal with it. I don't know if that was the best way or why that would be the way to do that, but,
Yeah, how do you justify a lie? Because generally speaking, we should not lie. But if Nazis were coming on your door and you were hiding Anne Frank, the lie is noble and courageous and, moral in that scenario, right? Like, at what point does the gray area? Is there a line where lying is good versus lying is bad, and like, what is the gray area in between that?
Yeah, and on the contrast to that, I wonder if, according to literal interpretation of the Bible, or maybe not literal, but just general interpretation of the Bible, would a Jew hiding in Nazi Germany be wrong for trying to hide the fact that they are Jewish, or would it technically be correct for them to accept this mistreatment because they are Jews, because admitting that you are Jewish would be standing by your convictions? Yeah, it's a weird kind of line to try and draw there. At what point does lying ever become okay? At what point does it become okay, if ever?
Yeah.
Is it okay to lie about your faith if it is literally a matter of life and death and you're going to be sent to the gas chambers just for being Jewish? Or is going to the gas chambers what God would want you to do in order to stand by your moral conviction and maintain your faith? I don't know. If you interpret the Bible literally, then the answer would absolutely be you should just accept your death sentence. But we aren't interpreting it literally.
Right.
And I don't think that my higher self would tell me, yeah, you should admit that you were raised Protestant. If I was in Scotland and that's like a thing, Protestants versus Catholics, would my higher self tell me, yeah, take that Glasgow smile, tell them that you were raised Protestant when you're in a Catholic area? Like, you need to take this razor to the face.
Yeah.
I don't see any part of myself saying that's the intelligent move here.
That's a very interesting dilemma. I don't know.
And let's see.
The next point was Abram leaving with his nephew Lot, and I think this shows Abram's character and wisdom and tactfulness, and just he's very like stoic in the sense that he's like whatever makes things work. Like I am not holding on to these possessions. Like God is telling me I will have all the land I will ever need. Accept that. So that means I don't have to bicker over who gets which land when it comes to something like this, a petty squabble between our herders. Take whichever land you need. He's showing a lot of wisdom and poise in knowing that God will lead him in the right direction.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's like a good takeaway. Like, yeah, we can go on and knowing that our conscience, our highest moral compass, will lead us in the right direction. Don't get bogged down in these little squabbles.
Yeah, don't involve yourself in these unnecessary petty conflicts if your conscience or whatever it may be is telling you you're okay, you're going to have what you need. Just let this little thing go and things are going to work out for you, which I think is definitely a valuable lesson, just again in general in real life. There's no need to involve yourself in just petty little unnecessary conflict if you just are doing the right thing regularly and you just based on that accept the fact that things will work out if I just let this dumb little thing go that I don't need to focus on and I keep moving forward the way that I need to do so.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then Lot goes over to the abundant land and water near Sodom.
Yeah, near Sodom. That's key, which I don't know if it's key for any particular reason as far as Lot's decision to do that, but just because it eventually is what leads him to be taken in the aftermath of this battle. I don't know why he would choose to live near Sodom if that was the land of like debauchery, basically. Maybe he didn't know, but I mean, I feel like if you're living right outside the city, you're gonna know.
Yeah, let's say assuming he does know, why would he go towards that? I mean, well, yeah, because he saw abundant land, he saw abundant water, and it was prosperous. That's an attractive thing to go to. Despite even the wickedness nearby, he was willing to go to that. Does that show a moral lapse in his judgment? I don't know.
It could. That could be. It's almost like like an idea of a false idol to a certain extent. Not in that like a false god or a false deity, but just that even though this land is full of wickedness and debauchery or whatever, well, they've still got water. So they must be doing something right. So I guess it doesn't matter if I live nearby, even though he knows that it's full of a bunch of terrible people. And so, yeah, I would say that is a lapse in judgment. Maybe it's just, bad people, bad places to be, just places that you shouldn't go might look pretty tempting.
Yeah.
And you need to resist the urge to go over there. And otherwise you might, be kidnapped by victorious kings.
Yeah, right. It could also be a point of pride if he understood that there was wickedness over there, but he went over there thinking, I'll be okay. Like, I can handle this. Things will turn out okay for me despite myself surrounding myself around other people that are bad.
Right. Like, I'm good enough. It's not going to affect me. I'm fine. Yeah, that could be as well. Yeah.
I'm not as impressionable. I'm not that impressionable.
Yeah.
And we all are very impressionable.
Yeah, almost like he's saying there's no way that I specifically could fall victim to this evilness, wickedness, whatever it may be. That could almost be like, we've talked before about how just incorrect it is to assume that you are not capable of being overtaken by that kind of a lifestyle. Everybody is susceptible to it. It's, everybody that's living that way is a regular person, just like you. There's no reason for you to believe that you are incapable of being turned towards that kind of living.
Right. Yeah, I think that's, whether the Bible's trying to tell us that or not, that's a really good lesson to take away. Like, do not be so confident that you can go into these scenarios and walk away unscathed.
Definitely. Yeah, and we've talked about that before, and this specific example we've talked about before, but just because we brought up Anne Frank and the Gestapo earlier, like, everybody in Nazi Germany was a regular person. Everybody that participated in that monstrosity, that was just a person. They were not born a monster. They were born with the capability of becoming one, just like everybody else, and they did. They were not unique, genetically speaking. They're just like everybody else.
Worshiping the false idol allowed themselves to lead to that scenario, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you could absolutely think of a smooth-talking dictator. Well, I wouldn't say he was smooth-talking. He was a good public speaker. But, I don't think bashing a table and waving your hands around like a psychopath is very smooth. But, yeah, no, definitely. They allowed their damn near worship of that false idol and his fucked ideology to overtake them and allow them to commit these just terrible monstrosities against other people for ridiculous reasons. And again, that was just a bunch of regular people that was participating in that.
Yeah, right. Totally. Okay. Then we go on to the Four Kings. This one, I really don't even have many takeaways from this because I can't comprehend it very well.
Yeah, they don't go too much into detail about what's going on in these other people's lands. Yeah. They just say that Sodom is full of evil.
Yeah.
They don't say what's going on in all of these other kings' lands. So I don't know why they're at odds. Maybe we can just assume that they are upset with them for living in such a detrimental way.
Yeah, because I think the 5 kings were still working in service of the 4 kings. So the 4 kings were still seeing over them to a certain extent.
Could be.
That's what...
Yeah, let me... Oh.
They had served Chedorlaomer, who was one of the 4 kings that took up against Sodom.
Okay.
So for 12 years they had served this king. And so maybe they were just tired of serving this king.
Yeah.
I don't have a ton of takeaways from that.
They also don't go too much into detail about the conflict itself. I mean, it just says that they have a battle and that the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah lose, and that as they're fleeing, some of their men fall into the tar pits.
They specifically fall into the tar pits.
The kings do.
Yeah. Which was strange. I'm like, how are they alive still?
It just says, so I'm reading it here. It says the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and some fell there.
And as the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah fled, they fell into these, while the rest fled to the mountains.
Oh, okay. Which version are you reading?
Is this the New American? Or New...
Okay, that could be
the New American Bible.
Okay, I'm reading World English.
Okay.
All right, so we've got conflicting tellings of the story there between different versions of the Bible. What the heck?
What the frick? Yeah, well, the rest fled to the mountains. The victors seized all the possessions and food supplies of Sodom and Gomorrah and then went their way. They took with them Abram's nephew Lot, who had been living in Sodom, as well as his possessions, and departed.
Mm. And does it say how many men the kings have? I didn't think it did.
No.
It just, because it mentions how many people Abram has at his disposal, with 318, which seems like a pretty small contingency. And I assume that these several kings had many more men at their disposal. But because it doesn't mention it, I don't know if we can take away any kind of message about there being a smaller force versus a larger force.
Yeah, it doesn't mention the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Abram shows once the king of Sodom requests or requires, whichever, Abram to give all the captives and the goods back. Or he says, or excuse me, actually, then Abram gave him Sodom a tenth of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the captives, the goods you may keep." But Abram replied to the king of Sodom, "I have sworn to the Lord, God Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, that I would not take so much as a thread or a sandal strap from anything that is yours, so that you cannot say, 'I made Abram rich.' Nothing for me except what my servants have consumed and the share that is due to the men who went with me."
Yeah, and I think there's something about fairness in there, and that he says that he wants to give the men that were with him their share.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that there is something to be said about the fact that he wants nothing from the king of Sodom.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you that there's definitely something to that about just accepting the fact that God, his higher self, whatever, was actually responsible for everything that he's earned. He doesn't want it to be coming from the king of Sodom. It might be specifically that it might also be that he specifically doesn't want help from this king that is leading his men to be wicked or unholy, whatever word the specific translation of the Bible gives us. But maybe he specifically doesn't want anything from him because of the way that he is running his kingdom. And that would maybe be almost like dirty money or whatever.
Yeah, I could totally get behind that. You don't want even the possessions that were wickedly accrued to be part of you, because they can curse you as well. And to take it to a real life example, for me, like on my principal, like I'm in a position where my parents have offered, like, you know, hey, if you need to help on a payment or something, you know, let me know. And for me, it's like a point of principle. No, even if I'm in a hard position, I will not take it. I am on my own. I am living as a man now. You've done your job. Even if you could offer that to me, I do not want it. I want to go out and live my call to adventure, in a sense. Like, this is on me now, and I want to stick by that.
Yeah.
So, I think, and then maybe even another take it a step further. Gaining victory over someone, or you have, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, you have something over someone else. You have power over someone else. And when you started in, let's say, that confrontation or whatever it may be, you said to yourself, this is why I'm doing this. This is what I'm either going to take or not take from them. This is why I'm doing this. Don't go and switch up after you have won and conquered. Like, once you are in that position of power, do not start abusing that power by now saying, because I'm in this position of power, I can take a little bit more here, I can take a little bit more here. Stick by what you said you would do, and be good with that.
And which part of the story are you drawing that from?
Abram not accepting anything from Sodom, where even though Sodom says, "Go ahead, take half, the possessions, just keep the servants, or let me keep the servants."
Yeah, give me the servants and keep all of the goods.
Abram was in a position where he could have said, "Fine, I'll do that, sure," and he very well could have done that. But by his principle, going into it beforehand, let's say God had told him, "This is what I will give you. You don't need to take anything else from anyone else."
Sure.
He doesn't need to go out and now say, "You know what? Yeah, you offered, so yeah, I will take those."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And especially because it was the lives of other people that Sodom was or the king of Sodom rather was asking for. It wasn't like he was just offering to give him stuff. He was offering to give him stuff in exchange for lives, which who knows what he's going to do with them if he's leading this fucked up city. Like, is he going to enslave them? Are they going to be condemned to a life of wickedness because they're now living in Sodom? I think there could be something to that about just the, moral responsibility to not barter away, maybe not lives specifically, but just know what's more important.
How so? Like, because Abram does, he just says, okay, Sodom, take the servants and take the possessions.
Oh, he says take them both.
Yeah. He says, I will not take anything from you.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I guess it doesn't. Does it specifically say who was in possession of the? When I say possession, where the people were? Because I thought that the people were currently with Abram,
So
and
the
that he was
captains-
basically telling him, like, give me all of this, or give me all of the people, and then you can keep the stuff, as opposed to Abram just not giving the people away.
So Abram is in possession of the captives at this point, but the captives there's in this scenario are Sodom's. And then Abram says, I would not take so much as a thread or a sandal strap from anything that is yours, so including servants, because they are considered possessions.
Okay.
So he's saying,
Gotcha.
I won't even take them.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of reading it under the assumption that good people in the stories are against servitude and slavery, but that's just not the case.
That's a modern maybe perception of it, right? Like,
Right. Yeah, but yeah, I should assume, they literally had the servant that Sarai told him to impregnate.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, no, he doesn't give a shit about slavery.
Yeah.
Literally using them. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, misunderstanding on my part there.
It's all good, homie. Okay. And then the covenant with Abram. Abram's all like, yo, no children. What's up with that? And so then they go on to sleeping with the servant. And any takeaways from that?
Sleeping with the servant specifically, I'm not really sure. I mean, it's kind of a can of worms because at first it's Sarai that offers the servant up to him and asks him to impregnate, but then there's conflict there between the servant and Sarai, which is more caused by the servant being kind of just shitty, basically. Like, oh, what, you can't give birth? Fucking loser. Which, maybe that's one reason that her son was damned to be a pariah. Because, this was a child born out of wedlock. I don't know how much there is to actually read into that, because it seems like having multiple wives is fine in the context of these stories, at least so far. Maybe that eventually changes, but I mean, the Pharaoh had multiple wives, and it wasn't a problem until he tried to marry somebody else's wife. But maybe it was just because of her shitty attitude towards the woman that allowed her to become pregnant. It's like, really, you're going to be looking down on this person who not only gave you the ability to become pregnant, but did so by offering up her own husband to you, and now you're going to look down upon her for that? It's kind of fucked up. So your son is going to be a donkey among men. He's going to be an ass. Yeah. So maybe that's the first thought that comes to my mind there, is just that potentially as punishment for how shitty her perception of Sarai was after she did this good thing for her, maybe that's why the angel would have told her, your son is going to be an outcast.
To take it into modern day experience, I guess you could say. I think a lot of the Bible, I think specifically the New Testament, talks a lot about we are called to serve. Like, we are servants of others. And when you start to look down on the people you're serving, you are giving yourself a false sense of being a god, essentially. Like, you are better, start to think, I'm better than these people, or they need my help, whatever it may be. But when you start looking down on your servants, you are destroying your purpose, which is to be a servant for other people. I don't know if I have anything more profound other than that statement.
Yeah, that could be it. Just that you're, if you are called to serve, then any ill treatment of those people that you're meant to be serving could definitely be taken as not an affront to God, but just not how you're supposed to be acting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, ultimately it's your duty to just be good to others, not to have shitty perceptions of them because of their not even shortcomings, but just their bad luck. You know, it's not her fault she can't get pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it is her duty to be a servant to these people, then it would also then be her duty to just, again, like you said, not be shitty to those people, because it's just what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and we'll find that out later once we start getting into the New Testament and Jesus. Like, whatever you do to the least of my brothers, you do to me. Something that he says, and that's shown here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, God tells Abraham that his descendants will be aliens in a foreign land and oppressed as slaves for 400 years. So, in a sense, 4 generations from now in a literal sense, 4 generations from now, our descendants will kind of be in an alien land. Like, you think about 4 generations before us, like, our world is like, they'd be like, holy crap, you guys are aliens. You know, you guys are in a totally different world. So even just in the literal sense, our descendants will be in a totally new world with different context around morality and different context around all sorts of things than we are. Morality may shift in that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Very, yeah. And for 400 years, your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own. And they will be enslaved and mistreated there. So that almost sounds like even right now they're going to be aliens in this foreign land.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with the fact that in that much time we would consider this exact same land 400 years from now completely foreign and alien to us, absolutely. But he goes on to say, you know, that afterwards they'll come out with great possessions. I do think that there's something in there about, like you said, hard times creating good men, or at least either that or just something about it, suffering being ultimately good for you. You know, putting yourself through hardship is going to yield you some benefit.
Because it specifically says once they come out of it, they will have great wealth.
Mm-hmm.
You have gone through the call to adventure, and you are going to be in the darkest places of your life for a very long time. But you will end up with wealth on the other side. Yeah,
and it does kind of play into the beginning of the story in that regard, in just that first of all, God tells Abraham to go out and adventure, explore. He immediately encounters just negativity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he is immediately, people try to steal his wife away from him. People kidnap his nephew. He gets caught up in a war. So it makes sense that God would then go on to tell him, like, yeah, this is just kind of how it's going to be for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
but eventually your dues will be paid, so to speak, and you will be better for all of this hardship that you've put yourself through. It's not for nothing.
It's interesting that, like, God's giving him the security of, like, this is going to happen. But almost, it seems like, you know, when we're going through these hardships, the value in it is partially not knowing if you're going to get out on the other side, not knowing the distance of how long this hell is going to extend,
Mm-hmm.
but still going through it anyway.
Yeah. Well, maybe...
No, please.
Okay, yeah, so just based on our interpretation of what God is, it's not literally this deity speaking to him. It's just the best part of his brain telling him, like, this is going to be worth it, which I think is healthy. When that's almost how you accept the fact that you don't know. Whenever you're going out into this unexplored territory, you have to be the one to tell yourself something might come of this. You know, it's not about being assured by any sort of higher power or knowing for a fact for any reason that you are going to get X out of it. You know, you don't need to know specifically what you are going to get out of it. It's just about telling yourself this hardship is worth it. I am going to be better for it. I'm going to come out the other side a better person with a more fruitful life, with more to my name, whether that's actual physical possessions or just being a better person. Not better as in nicer, but just like more capable, potentially more wealthy, whatever your idea of what a better you is. Just, you know, your highest self telling you, yeah, this is going to be the case, so you need to power through it.
Agreed. Seriously, was pissing out. Okay, so we covered that. The covenant. Okay, so now we'll get to the covenant of circumcision, and this is where we will finish with this episode. I don't fucking know. Like, a mark, like, you know, they could have. I'd imagine being like the 40-year-old is like, Abram walks up to you, hey, you got to get circumcised now, man. You go like, can't. I go, why? Well, because it marks the covenant with God. How about like a fucking tattoo or something?
Yeah, I would rather be branded. Can we do that?
Chop a part of my fucking finger off, for fuck's sakes.
Right.
Good
yeah.
Lord. Why do you want to take my penis? I don't know what to make of circumcision. And because, honestly, from a philosophical standpoint, if I am against, let's say, allowing children to transition to a different gender at a young age, I mean, I would prefer to be consistent in saying, like, well, why do we mutilate babies' penises? Like, you can keep them. There's plenty of people that are capable of keeping them clean. It's not that much different. Like, uncircumcised. We know a mutual person that is uncircumcised. Well, just cut it out But
no.
But anyway, people, like, I don't know, like, that's not necessary. It's a weird tradition that I don't see the significance of still doing that.
I certainly don't see the religious significance. I understand the medical argument that it's just, well, you're less likely to get an infection, but it's like, where do we draw the line at how many things we could do to potentially prevent infections? Or, how many things could we do to mutilate ourselves that would also potentially reduce the likelihood of getting some kind of infection?
Yeah.
Why are we still circumcising babies? I don't get it. I won't say that I'm upset that I'm circumcised. You know, the whole anteater thing looks a little bit strange to me. But I don't understand the significance as it relates to any sort of biblical takeaway.
Yeah.
Whether it's a literal just sign of faith that it's like, yeah, I'm marking myself so that people know as soon as they see my dick, I am a man of faith. And I don't see any kind of deeper meaning that could be maybe it's sacrificing a part of yourself as a way of bolstering your covenant with God. Maybe that's the takeaway there. But I mean, your penis is pretty important to most men, so it would make sense that if you're going to sacrifice a very important part of yourself, it would be part of your penis.
Yeah.
But, like, why? Why does it have to? I don't know. I don't really get it.
Maybe the only thing I can think of right now is that at some point in the interpretation of the Bible got fucked up, and circumcision meant something when they initially made this Bible than what it means as we interpret it. Like, it's just so strange to me.
It is.
And they don't do they have the medical did they have the medical technology necessary to make a proper circumcision back then? Fuck?
How many people 2,000 years ago do you think suffered otherwise very avoidable infections because they were circumcising babies?
Yeah.
I mean, you're cutting off a chunk of skin on a very, I don't know, just generally susceptible to infection part of your body. I'm sure it caused more problems than it solved.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe back then I could see the argument for it being cleaner making more sense because they weren't able to bathe as thoroughly or as regularly, but also medical practices were nowhere near as far along as they are now. So the actual circumcision process was much more dangerous.
Yeah.
And I mean, there have been issues with it in modern day. They're few and far between, but they still happen even now. So I can only imagine how much more common they would have been a couple of millennia ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I really struggle to. I almost want to do a deeper dive into what other people's interpretation of that is. People more intelligent than me, just to see what do you guys think. Like, Dr. Peterson, what's your takeaway on the circumcision thing?
Dr. Penison.
Dr. Penison.
What's going on with the penises?
What's happening? Yeah, I genuinely have no idea. Born into his house, money, every male among the men of Abram's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the same day. Why?
Why, Gary?
Why, Gary? Why? And it doesn't go into detail why. It just says, all of you guys need to be circumcised. Nobody questions it. He doesn't go into any more detail about what the connection is there between that and the Christianity. It's just, do this. Okay. Not even okay. It's not even a hesitant okay. It's just, they did it.
Yeah. There was no
pushback.
Troubles, no pushback.
Yeah.
Every single person in that tribe was like, yeah, you can take part of my penis. Take it.
I don't know. I'm kind of lost on that one. I'm very lost on that one. I do not know what the takeaway is with the circumcision at all. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin.
Ishmael, his son, was 13.
Those are both old circumcisions. Those are late. They're going to remember that.
Honestly, I don't know what to take from it.
I don't know.
Sorry to leave you on a penis tip hanger.
Yeah, we're sorry to leave you with unanswered questions there, but I have genuinely no idea what the connection to faith and circumcision might be, or any life lessons and circumcision. Just generally, no clue. Yeah. I have absolutely no idea. I have no takeaway from the circumcision. I don't know. Other than maybe it's something about sacrificing a very valuable part of yourself as a sign of faith, but
that's about as much as I could take away from it, and that still feels like a stretch.
It does. Stretch. Foreskin. Yeah.
Well, what are our key takeaways from this episode?
Key takeaways from this episode are difficult. This was a confusing series of stories. I mean, first of all, the call to adventure is within you. Your higher self does want you to go out and explore, because that is ultimately what will lead you to success, discovery, progress. It's going to be difficult. As soon as you start, people might start trying to steal your wife and kidnap your ancestors and kill you if you don't lie about your wife being your sister.
So lie about your wife being your sister.
Lie about your wife being your sister. I don't know how helpful that's going to be, because then people will just think that she is more fair game, even as evidenced in the story. I don't know how he thought that would help. I mean, thinking about it from like, what if the Pharaoh did just kill you when you did eventually reveal, yeah, no, she's actually my wife?
Yeah.
Like, by lying about her being your sister, you were just making her fair game without you having to be murdered first. But, I mean, who's to say that you either A, just don't lose your wife, or B, lose your life later? You know, it's like either have your wife stolen, die now, or have your wife stolen permanently, die now, or have your wife stolen temporarily and die later.
Yeah.
It
sucks either way.
Yeah, it's a lose situation there. Maybe you're just supposed to lose your wife and just walk away from it. All right, well, there goes my sister wife. It's fun while it lasted, fucking Pharaoh. But yeah, I don't know. It's very confusing from start to finish.
Well, sorry that we don't have the answers, but that is a good point though. Like, this show is all about, like, we're just kind of going through it. We aren't going to pretend that we know any of it. I think when I look at a lot of like Bible talking things, they are under the impression that they know for certain that God is this way and God has these specific intentions. And what I like about this show is we don't fucking know. Like, this is just like, hey, maybe it's this. Hey, maybe it's that.
Yeah, we've said several times before, we aren't looking to come away with any grandiose answers on this show, nor do we really expect to.
Right.
We might come away with some interpretation that we are able to take away from the stories, but it's not always going to be that way. You know, there are very confusing stories in the Bible, and we're probably going to end up coming back to some of these at some point, but there's probably going to be plenty of episodes where we read a story or multiple stories and we just think,
The fuck?
what
Yeah.
are we supposed to take away from this? You know, I don't know. I mean, the Tower of Babel was almost that way because, you know, on its face, like, they're building this tower to heaven and God just comes down and says, let's confuse them so they can't work together anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, at face value, what the hell do you do with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, well, our conscience just doesn't want us to be able to cooperate. It seems non-productive. It seems like the opposite of productive.
Yeah.
It's beyond non-productive.
Yeah.
It's purely detrimental. But I'm glad we were able to go a little bit farther into that and come away with some kind of interpretation that we think is accurate to a certain degree, but not always going to be the case. This was very confusing to me. And I would, even as I was taking notes on it beforehand, I would write down what happened, and then I'm just thinking to myself,
The fuck?
what does that mean?
Yeah.
What do I even ask about this so that I might come up with some sort of an answer? I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no fucking clue, no idea. This almost just seems like a story and not a parable.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what the fuck do I take away from this? Other than some of the very basic things that we came up with, like, yeah, you need to go out and adventure, but it might be a big pain in the ass, and probably will be. But as far as the specifics go, I have no fucking clue. I have no idea.
Well, and not even that it probably will be. It must be, in order for it to be a successful call to adventure.
Probably, yeah, because it's not really going to be much of an adventure if you're just going and
Right.
experiencing everything that you've already experienced, which is really the only way that it could be easy, unless you just are literally the luckiest person on the planet and everything just so happens to work out for you, which you're not that guy, pal.
You're not that guy.
You're not that guy. Yeah, I don't know.
You're not that guy, pal.